channel. So we'll go ahead and start that recording. And again, let me say good morning to you. Envision Athens is the 20-year community and economic development plan for Athens, Clarke County. And our work is one with a 20-year trajectory organized across 14 different domains. Health is one of those domains, and the priority action for our health team at this point in time is to focus on increasing awareness of and supports for people living in recovery. And I know that many of you are new to this call and might be joining us for the purpose of the recovery messaging training today. So you are our honored guests. Thank you for joining. The waiting room is still active, so please understand if we're a little bit scattered. We're trying to make sure everyone who wants access to the conversation can join us this morning. So normally we make time for introductions, but today I think we have some really critical content to share, and I want to be sure that we leave time for questions. So if it's all right with the group, I will wait until the end, and if you have any special community announcements to share, or if you'd like to introduce yourself and have any questions for the group, we're going to hold that to the end. So let me go ahead and introduce not only our special guest, but an ongoing member and leader within this team, Larnie McCarver. So Larnie, thank you for joining us. And let me introduce Larnie to the group. You may know her as the intake coordinator at Acceptance Center. She is essentially the first point of contact for people who are entering services there. She's also the recently appointed and elected president of GAR, the Georgia Association of Recovery Residences, and was also chosen to participate in the Georgia Recovers campaign to help bring awareness to recovery and end the stigma surrounding recovery. And that is really the core of the training that she's sharing with us today. You may not know about Larnie that she served as a medic in the U.S. Army and is certified in her past life as a paramedic and a phlebotomist. So she is a Renaissance individual. She has battled a 17-year addiction and has been in recovery from active addiction since March 25th, 2011. So as I noticed that, Larnie, that means your 10-year anniversary for being in recovery is this month. Is that correct?
It is. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to kick that off with some major applause. So guys, let me just say on a personal note that when we started this work, moving from a more general behavioral health crisis response in a collaborative way to focusing in on increasing supports for people living in recovery and increasing the coordination of resources, I had a lot to learn about this specific area, and the learning curve was steep for me. This is just not an area that I had a lot of personal or professional experience in. And this group of people has been for me gracious teachers. I had a lot to learn, and I've learned a lot. And Larnie has been one of my key teachers. So Larnie, I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to you. And thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you, everyone, for joining. It's amazing to see 33 people in this group today. I'm honored to be able to provide I wouldn't really call it training, but more of a talk on strength-based language regarding recovery and those in recovery or seeking recovery. My name is Larnie McCarver, and I am a person in long-term recovery. What that means for me is that I have not felt the need or want to use any mind or mood-altering substances to change the way I feel since March 25th of 2011. My recovery has allowed me to recognize my own self-worth, mend relationships, be an active, responsible member of my community, be reliable in all aspects of my life. And ultimately, it has allowed me to advocate for recovery and show the people around me and beyond that recovery is possible and that we can change our stars. In active addiction, I was a chicken scratching at the ground looking for crumbs, literally looking for crumbs. I manipulated others into taking care of me and giving me what I wanted. And today I am fully independent and self-supporting. I am an eagle today. I can soar to great heights. I choose to speak out about my recovery because I'm not anonymous. I believe we all deserve another chance to be productive and responsible members of our community, and we are a resilient bunch. I would like to share also that in my active addiction, I not only manipulated my surroundings, I manipulated my employers, my family, my parents, anybody that I could. And today I'm a trusted employee with my employer, and I have been. I also celebrate an anniversary with them this month on the 17th, which is an amazing thing for me in recovery. This would be my second longest job while I've been in recovery, which is an amazing thing. My parents have a key to my home and I have a key to theirs, which in active addiction, they took my key away. I have a key to their vehicle. I actually have a key to 3 vehicles, and I'm trusted to walk into different people's homes today. And they don't have to be home for me to do that. So recovery has given me so much, and I have the opportunity to share that with other people. And today what I want to do is I want to talk about the language that we use when we're talking about those in recovery, because what we have been in the past, what we're used to saying is addicts, users, and things, the words that have a stigma attached to it. And there are other words, such as people with substance use disorder, or the word active addiction instead of a junkie, that we can use to help take the stigma away. Because active addiction and then recovery are 2 separate things, right? Or so what I want to do is, John, we have a picture, right? Says, say this, not that. All right.
Sorry, I'm pulling it up, Larnie.
Okay, that's fine. So, what we're sharing right now is very simple. Thank you, John. Very simple things that people say almost on a daily basis. And some of this for some of our people in supervision, DCS, and even our law enforcement may find yourselves using these words. And even sometimes people in recovery use these words as well, the ones that are in pink. So we have the say this, a person with a substance use disorder. Instead of saying addict, junkie, druggie, user, we can say person with a substance use disorder. Instead of saying ex-addict, which 12-step fellowships, we're used to calling ourselves addicts because we respect the fellowship that we're in, addicts, alcoholics. We can say person living in recovery. Instead of saying battling or suffering from an addiction, we are a person living with an addiction. This is a good one. A drug offender was a person arrested for a drug violation. Non-compliant or not ready or willing. This one I've used several times in my own profession. Chooses not to at this point because we all have a choice. This one I've used also. Medication is the crutch. For those that are familiar with MAT, medication is a crutch. Medication is a treatment tool. Relapsing disorder. It's not a relapsing disorder. It's a preventable, treatable health condition. This one is stayed clean as opposed to what? Did they take a shower today? Maintained recovery. We use these in our treatment goals. Maintain recovery for the next 30 days. This one is my favorite. A dirty drug screen. Dirty drug screen, we all know what that is. It means that, there's another one that's I lit the cup. I lit the drug screen up, or it was I melted the cup. It was a positive drug screen. For those that are families, or friends that, we want to take care of our person who is in active addiction, we like to call them enablers. I don't really care for this one, but it's an ally for recovery. Denial. They're not in denial. They're just ambivalent about what they want to do. Relapsed. This is a horrible, horrible term. We like to call it had a setback, because relapse doesn't have to be forever. Setbacks can be very temporary. And hit bottom. Who's to say what the bottom is for someone? The elevator can get off at every floor. Everybody has a chance at recovery at any point in their active addiction. All right, so this is what we want to do, because we have some time, but we don't have a whole lot of time. John, let's go back to the screen real quick. And this is what I'd like to do. Did everybody get a chance to see the handout or the other thing for the sheet that's with the DBHDD and the Georgia Council at the top? Did you all see that email? If not, it's okay. If you have a piece of paper and a pen, that will work.
You're referring to this one, correct, Lauren?
Yes, sir. That's the one.
Do you want me to keep sharing screen?
Huh?
Would you like me to continue sharing screen on it?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's perfect. So this is what we're going to do. This is just simply going to be used as a guide. It's going to be, we're going to develop our message. And the important thing is to know who we're talking to. In most cases, this is something new that I'm doing. Usually I'm talking to the recovery community. So people who are in recovery when we're giving this message. Today it's a little bit different. So it's kind of my first time doing it this way. So what we're doing is we're going to be talking to our community as advocates or allies for recovery. So we need to know who our audience is, right? What that means is, who are we talking to? Are we talking to law enforcement, probation, schools, neighborhoods, apartment, housing? Who are we talking to? And we want to tailor our message to who we are talking to. There's many ways to develop this message. The message is not designed as a one size fits all. So the first thing to do is, how do we identify ourselves? As you notice, when we started this, I identified myself as a person in long-term recovery. You can identify yourself as an advocate for recovery. You can identify if you have a family member that is in recovery, or a family member that is in active addiction. You can, I'm a family member of a person in recovery. I'm an ally of recovery. However you want to identify yourself. But you want to start off with that, identify who you are, and then why you're there to talk to these people, right? So why do the people you're talking with care? Why do they care? Maybe they don't care. We don't know. So a lot of people have preconceived ideas, and this is the point of this messaging, is a lot of people have preconceived ideas about people that have this lived experience of addiction, that they're not trustworthy, they're unreliable, all the things that the stigma, that there's stigma around, that they're surrounded by legal issues, they are constantly incarcerated, all those things. But maybe you've met somebody that's not. Maybe you've met somebody that is someone like some of the people that are in this room or in this Zoom that have managed to change their stars and have managed to build a new life for themselves, and have become productive members of society, that pay their bills and go to work every day, and are present mothers and fathers today. And that's something that some people don't see or don't want to see. So it's, who are you? How do you want to identify? And even what that means to you. So for advocates, it could be maybe recovery has touched you in a certain kind of way, or you've seen how maybe somebody in the recovery community has touched your life or affected your life. Or maybe you employ someone, you work with someone in recovery, whatever that looks like. And then, John, if you'll scroll down a little bit. Okay, perfect. And then it says, the third part is, what are some specific examples of your recovery the people you are talking with will relate to? So this, we kind of have to switch it up, and is, what are some specific examples, just not of your recovery, of recovery, or the challenges that you've seen in regards to recovery, getting people into recovery, housing people in recovery, keeping people there, whatever that looks like, and how it relates to the person you're talking to. So if it's about employment and they're like, I don't want to hire them because they're unreliable. Well, have they been given a chance? If it's about housing, I don't want to hire them because they have a criminal, or I don't want to house them or rent to them because they have a criminal record. Well, if their criminal record is 5 years old, why not give them a chance? Like, how does it relate to them? You know, it might enhance them. It might enhance, their rental property if this person has been a productive member of the community and has held a job for the time that they have not been incarcerated and have been able to pay their bills. Can you use that as an example, right? We want to be able to put examples in there and be able to use an experience that we have personally. This is a personal message that we're pitching to the community as advocates. Also, that now myths. Now, we've all heard certain myths about recovery. We've all heard myths about mental health challenges, addiction. And I would hope that being a part of this group, and even in Safe Athens, being a part of that group, that we've been able to dispel some of those myths about addiction, mental health, and recovery. So what are those myths that you've heard, you've believed at one point, and do you believe those, and how were you proven wrong? I used to say, I once believed that once a junkie, always a junkie. And today I don't believe that. I shared at the beginning that now I believe that we can all change our stars. It doesn't matter who you are. And again, I can't stress this enough. Know who you are talking to. This can be something that can be used when I've used this when I'm at the grocery store. I've used this at the mall. I've used this at, different conventions. I've used this in school. I've used this almost everywhere. But most times I use it at work. When I'm bringing a family in and I'm meeting with the parents, and the parents have no idea what's happening. Know who you're talking to. That's very, very important. If you're talking to a corporate executive and you're not using language that they can relate to, you're going to lose them. So we want to make sure that that you're talking to them in a way that they can understand and they can relate. And then lastly, what do you want them to know, or what do you want them to do? This is where you kind of hit them in the gut, right? And you pull on their heartstrings a little bit. So if you're going for funding, if you're going for, maybe you want to talk to your legislator and you want them to, like back a bill or something like that, or maybe it's, you want them to maybe allot 5 units for people that are in recovery. You share that part. Most of the time it's for funding. So we use this a lot for funding. We use this a lot just to say, hey, look at me as an actual human being instead of a person that has a past. So that's your bones. And then on the back of that page is I think I sent it, yeah. On the back of the page is where you kind of put it all together. So a piece of paper will do fine, but essentially it will come out to what I shared at the very beginning. It should only be about 1 minute long, one to 2 minutes long, if that. It can be very, very short. So what I would like to do, John, you can stop sharing. What I would like to do is I would like to allot about 5 or 10 minutes for everyone to come up with their elevator or their messaging using some strength-based language. Feel free to use Google if you're not sure, or to chime in and I can help you with some different wording if you're unsure. I'm more than happy to do that. I usually make people sick with the way I change words. So I'm happy to do that with you all. But what I would like to do is I'd like to hear from whoever wants to share and give it a shot. It can be a little bit nerve-wracking, but it's fun. So I'd like to give about, Aaron, if that's okay, about 5 or 10 minutes to do that and give some time to,
That's great, Learning. While folks are working on that, is it okay if I just kind of bat around a couple of questions with you?
Yeah,
and this might help
absolutely.
with language as well. John, would you mind to pull up the this, not that sheet again? And a couple of questions struck me that might help other people as well. So Larnie, I know we've discussed in Healthy Athens the terminology of referring to addiction as a disease. Can you speak to if that's an appropriate term?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought so. I just wanted to double check. We can refer to addiction as a disease, but when we're referring to an addict, right? We want to say a person with a substance use disorder. When you say disease, it kind of like, can you hear me? Uh-oh.
Aaron might have froze.
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. All right. When you say disease, it kind of just like, whoa. But when you say disorder, it's like, oh, okay, it's a disorder. Like we can fix this. But when it's a disease, it's kind of like, oh, you're terminal. But so I like the word disorder better than the word disease. But it is a disease. But when we're talking about it, we want to just use like more strength-based language, and saying substance use disorder just sounds better than disease.
Substance use disorder. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So then, considering it is kind of described then as a disorder, what is problematic about saying battling or suffering from? I ask because in my mind, that doesn't sound negative to me. So I would love to know why that is problematic.
Well, so when you see, okay, so think about a picture, right? So if you picture someone who's battling or suffering, in my mind, when I envision, you like to see what I did there? When I envision someone battling or suffering, I envision somebody like on Skid Row.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Right. So person living with an addiction, I'm a person. I live with an addiction. I just don't entertain my addiction.
I hear you. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So then another question. So I understand why the phrase dirty drug screen is a problem, but if the person, okay, so you're saying if they tested positive, say the person tested positive.
Yes.
Is that okay? I just want to clarify that.
Yeah. So when, like, for instance, everyone's used to saying I had a clean screen or I had a dirty screen. And my favorite thing is, but was it dirty though? It came out of your body. You can use your pee to clean a wound. Like, it's not really dirty. It was positive for drugs.
Yeah. Thank you, Larnie.
You're welcome. It's just about changing the way that, we talk about it. And, like stayed clean, it's funny because I battled with this for a while because I come from a 12-step community. And, you say, I've been clean for 10 years, right? As opposed to being dirty for 10 years, so I have to respect the fellowship I come from. But when when we're talking in this arena, I choose to refer to myself as someone, as a person in long-term recovery. I don't say I stayed clean as opposed to, I was dirty for so long, 17 years, what the picture that I see for myself is that I didn't take a shower, or I didn't take care of myself, so I just want to throw that out there. I don't like correcting people when they say stay clean, because that's what we grow up with in the rooms. But it's more so about reducing the stigma and using strength-based language. We teach that to our residents when they complete the program, but we also respect the fellowship that they're in.
That's great. And Larnie, I know we're probably about ready to share, but while we're maybe giving folks just one more minute, if you wouldn't mind, Judge Sweat has a great question about how some people who are, I guess, using your language, chooses not to pursue recovery at this point. Sometimes
Sure.
those people are shamed. So any advice on better language or approaches in working with folks in that situation?
Yeah. So there is, we all know what motivational interviewing is, right? So when we encounter at ARC, when we encounter someone who chooses not to at this point, or like really they're just not. But when they choose not to, they're ultimately making the choice, and we meet them where they're at with that. But we ask them too, using motivational interviewing, what would it look like if you did? And kind of gauge their interest that way, and try to plant a seed, and not shame them for making the choice of saying, you know what, no, I'm not ready. But what would it look like if you were? And so sometimes they'll say, well, you know what, I don't really know. I've never really thought about that. But if you did know, what would you know? And make them think. Because see, we're not shaming them, and we're not arguing with them, and we're not trying to push them on anything, but we're just having them play with the idea. And what I've found is when you let them play with the idea of possibly entertaining recovery, eventually they might say, you know what, I might give it a try. Or sometimes the drugs just don't have the same effect anymore after we plant the seed. But the shaming part, so part of this, the pink stuff, a lot of that has to do with shaming. Oh, you relapsed again. You're just in denial. Oh, you had another dirty drug screen, or, you just keep, you're using your medication as a crutch, or, did you take your meds today? That one, I hate that one. When people ask me if I take my meds today, I hate that one. Because what you're saying is I'm not okay if I don't take my meds. The not ready or not willing, well, they might be willing, but maybe they don't know how. Or maybe they've never been, I had a person the other day who has never had support, who has never had anyone back him. And it's not that he wasn't ready and that he wasn't willing, he just didn't know how to receive it. And that's where motivational interviewing comes into play, is if you were to get it, what would that look like for you? Judge Sweat, does that answer it a little bit?
You're on mute, Judge Sweat.
The other piece, I often have sensed, shame, particularly when, I'm speaking with someone in a courtroom setting and, they have tested positive. And, speaking to someone in a way that acknowledges that they have not met a goal, but still, finding a way to put it in a positive light of moving forward.
Sure. So what I like to use is, what are the barriers that you've met while trying to reach your goals? That's one of the ones that I like to use. And then how can we assist you in overcoming that barrier? And would you like to keep that goal? So put the ball in their court, have them advocate for themselves and be able to vocalize what the barriers were. And they could be real honest and say, you know what, Judge, I just didn't feel like doing it. Okay, so what can we do, or how can we help you get motivated to get there? Or is this goal too big? Do we need to make it smaller? And that's how we do it with our guys. Sometimes they want to aim real big. And then when they get to doing it, they're like, oh God, this is so big. Like I can't. And then they get discouraged. So then we chomp off little tiny bits of it, and they're like, oh wow, I can actually do this. And the next thing you know, in a couple of months, this large goal has become real small and attainable. But it was all their idea. And all we did was just kind of cheerlead them on a little bit and help them with their barriers.
Larnie, thank you. I'm guessing folks are probably, if they're ready to share, have their messages complete. So we're at the halfway point in the hour. So maybe now's a good time to transition into that.
Absolutely. Yes. Anybody that would like to take a shot at it? Don't be shy. Oh boy.
Larnie, I don't mind just kicking us off. You know, you've busted my chops before, so I have no problem.
Go for it, Aaron.
Myself up for critique. I know I have a lot to learn, so here goes. So I'm approaching someone who I am hoping will rent property to a resident who's dealing with substance use disorder. So my name is Erin. I am an ally with people living in recovery. I used to think that addiction was a sign of self-centeredness. That is before I understood it as a substance use disorder and befriended people in recovery who are some of the most authentic, resilient, and generous people I know. Please consider renting your property to people who deserve a chance to rebuild their lives.
That was good.
Okay.
Really? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was good.
Any changes?
No, that was good. It was direct, to the point, heartfelt. Like, I loved it. It was great.
Well, thanks. I didn't expect that, but you know I have no problem being direct. So
Yes, I know, and I have no problem giving praise. So you know, I'm all about strength-based stuff.
Yeah.
All right, who's next?
I'm gonna take a shot.
All right, go ahead, Gwen.
I don't know if I'm doing it right, but okay, Aaron has set the bar high. Okay, I am talking, and maybe I viewed it different. I'm talking to a loved one who wants to probably just stay with me and hang around me and my children. So this is a really personal thing. Okay. And I'm saying, I don't mind. You are welcome in my home. I know that you are a recovering. I forget the words. I'm going to say the bad word. But I'm willing to give you a chance. I want you to feel welcome. I want you to be open, because only that way we can help each other. Because I am, even though they are recovering and they're being my loved one, I'm kind of recovering too from their mistakes and my misjudgment, doing the words, what you call it, doing what to say and not to say.
Mm-hmm.
I learned through this organization that I might have caused a little more pain than I should have caused, or caused you to get deeper in things instead of yelling and fussing. So we're going to do positive thinking, positive outcomes. And that's what I would say.
Wow, thank you, Gwen. So yours is real personal. And I think that that was great to be able to speak to not just your loved ones, but also your community in a more strength-based way. So I think that was great. Thank you so much. Anyone else?
We have some brilliant people on this call, so if you don't volunteer, I will volunteer you. So I'm just saying I reserve the right at any point.
I'm tempted to too, because I know some of these people on this call.
Oh yeah.
All right, Erin, before you volunteer me, I will volunteer.
Yes, I think you saw me looking at you, Dr.
Oh, yeah.
Go. Thank
I
you.
know, I know. All right, so I am speaking to a Georgia legislator. And I say, hi, I'm Anna. I'm an ally for people with substance use disorders who are working towards their long-term recovery. I know you're involved in allocating funding for services, so thank you for caring about the health of the people in our communities. This past week, I learned that there are I don't know the number, people on a waiting list to get treatment for their substance use disorders in Georgia. That's really tragic because when people get good support and treatment, recovery is real. And we know that for every dollar invested in substance abuse treatment, we save $7 in community cost. So substance use disorder treatment is a win for everybody. The person working on their recovery, their family and friends, and the whole community. I hope you'll put additional funding in the budget this year for substance use disorder treatment.
Yes. That was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
When are we going to Atlanta? I'll drive.
Yeah, wait a minute. I want to go next, and I just want you to send me that script.
Yes. Amazing.
Thank you.
And I will go next. I don't really have a lot to say because I was thinking of, again, becoming more of an advocate because I'm obviously touched by this in family and friends. And so mine started with, hi, my name is Linda Davis, and I want to help and not hinder my family and friends who are living with some type of, I didn't want to say substance abuse, because sometimes my issues with my family and friends are mental health disorders.
So you can say, substance use and mental health disorders.
So I can just be really specific in that.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Because that's kind of where I want to be. And I struggle with not seeing, I guess, enough immediate attention. I've actually, in the last 2 weeks, taken a family member to the ER because it was just nowhere else to go, nothing else we could do, no solution. And so I struggle with knowing that the need is there, and it may be great. I don't know how big it is, but I do know that I felt so absolutely helpless in not having an alternative. And so I really want to try and identify those resources, and if we don't have them, I'm hoping that I can advocate and touch some people to step up and figure out what does it look like to build one. Mm-hmm. So that's where I am. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ms. Davis. I appreciate it. I totally get where you're at with the mental health part of it because I struggled with the same thing over the weekend. So I understand. Okay, anybody else?
So thanks to Gwen and Anna and Linda for sharing. Would love to hear from maybe a couple more people before we open up for some final questions.
Sarah said she wants to go.
Yes, go Sarah.
Okay. Well, what I did was ask you if you want me to go, but
I'm not. My phone is far away, so I wasn't going to text you back.
all right. So I'm Sarah, and I'm a person in long-term recovery. And what that means to me is it's been almost 6 years since I've broken free of the chains of substance abuse disorder. Recovery has brought me from the depths of despair to a place of empowerment, from hopeless to a hope dealer, absentee parent to a full-time mom, and a successful returning citizen. I'm now a beloved daughter, a productive member of my community, a productive employee, an when I'm active in my church. The relationships that I thought were irrevocably destroyed are now thriving. My artwork, which is the same tool I once used to scream my anger at the world, I now utilize as filter in therapy. Today, I'm able to forgive, love, and feel in a way that I never thought possible. I'm valued, worthy, and treasured. Today, I believe that. I speak out loud about my recovery so that others have the same opportunity to feel this freedom that I was so freely given. I promote long-term recovery because it's possible, and it's one of the most rewarding feelings to come out on the other side with the ability to use the tools that I know can impact others around me, because recovery is possible.
Yay, thank you, Sarah.
Maybe one more person, Larnie, and then open up for anything else
Yeah.
you have and questions.
Absolutely. I would call on Laura's cat, but I think the cat walked away.
So I see some public safety allies on the call, a judge, some folks in counseling, some behavioral health experts, and some people I don't know. So I would love to hear from maybe one or two more people before we start to close out today.
Well, I'm afraid I was thinking about the question I asked earlier, but how can you make suggestions about how we talk about to lay people about individuals who are using medically assisted treatment? That's something that sometimes there's some stigma attached to just using that, but is there language that would help people maybe normalize, not make that a more healthy context?
I'm Judge Sweat. I'm actually going to tag Allie on this one. She's the pro on that one, so I'm going to tag Allie in on this one. Because I mean, I can talk well about it, but I think Allie can talk better about it.
Yeah, thanks, Larnie.
You're welcome.
I guess the big thing for me is folks used to say methadone clinic, which we really want to get away from. So we teach our patients now to say that they're in a medication-assisted treatment program. And I know it's a mouthful, but as people are learning what MAT is, you can kind of shorten it and say, I'm in an MAT program. But we really cannot stand for folks to say methadone clinic anymore, because everyone goes, ugh. So that would be my advice on that, is just say, you know, I'm a person and I use medications in my recovery.
I think the other part too is, you know, I take, same along with the lines of medication assisted treatment, I take mental health meds. And without my mental health meds, I am not Larnie. I am not the Larnie that you're talking to today. And say on that same token, I also take diabetes medication. And without that, I am also not Larnie. So without my medication, I cannot function with my day-to-days, go to work and do all of those things without the assistance of my medication. And that's an important part of my recovery, is using my medication the way my doctor has prescribed me to do so. And so when we stop viewing medication-assisted treatment as like taboo, and we start viewing it as a modality to treatment, instead of saying, ew, the methadone clinic, because there's much more than just methadone out there, you know, then it becomes to be a little bit more normalized, because nobody bats an eye when someone is taking diabetes medication. Some people are still batting an eye when people take mental health meds. It just depends on your culture. And I think now that people are starting to talk more and more about it, it's becoming more acceptable, but there still needs to be more talk about it.
Barney, I've got a question about that.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned earlier in meeting that you really despised it when somebody said, have you taken your meds today?
Yeah.
But as an officer on the street, whether it's police, probation, sheriff, we get out with somebody that we know is a mental health consumer. We see that they're in crisis. Would you suggest we ask, because knowing whether they took the medications may help us decide what next steps we need to take. So being able to ask that without offending them, how do you suggest going about that?
I would ask if they're prescribed any medication. Instead of asking them if they've taken it, because then you open the door to asking if they've taken it. So I'd first ask if they're prescribed any medication, and then ask if they've taken it today. So what I despise is when I'm in a bad mood, somebody saying, "Oh, you must not have taken your medicine today," and it being kind of like a punch in my stomach, saying that I'm not allowed to have a bad day. And it's not my medication is not a fix everything medicine. It is something to help regulate my chemical imbalances, right? But people have bad days. So I would start off with, are you prescribed anything? Are you taking them as prescribed? And a lot of times people who aren't are going to just tell you no.
Great question and great answer. Yeah, I think it's helpful to note that the problem with that is the assumption that someone takes medication, right? So just asking the question instead of assuming, that's really helpful. Tanya has a great question in the chat box. Lernie, if you could.
I see that. What is the appropriate response when being introduced to someone in recovery? Is it appropriate to say the words like congratulations? That's a toughie. It's a really good question. Me personally, I don't mind if you say congratulations to me, because I worked hard for it. And I don't think, to be honest with you, anybody that I've ever met, I don't think that they would mind either, saying congratulations. As long as it's not a condescending thing. I don't know. Usually if you're introduced to somebody who's in recovery, chances are that, it's probably they're probably already expecting it. So a congratulations would probably be appropriate or okay. But if it was like some kind of weird thing where it was, oh, by the way, they're in recovery, the person would probably just nod and be like, yeah, I am. And the question like, oh, wow, how long have you been in recovery? You can say that, but don't ask recovery from what. If they want to tell you, they will. But congratulations is okay. That's a really good question, though.
Lernie, are there any other things that you wanted to share with the group today? And if not, I'll transition us to any final questions before we have a couple of announcements.
Yeah, the only thing is just to remember that we want to do the best we can to use strength-based language. I find myself almost on a daily basis Googling words and looking at synonyms for words that I use, and I want to change the way I use those words. So if you're like, man, that word just doesn't sound real positive, Google it and find another word. And I do it a lot just to kind of expand my vocabulary, but also to help empower. So this is about empowering others, not just to help those in recovery and support those in recovery, but also to reduce the stigma for substance use and mental health, because the mental health struggles are real too. And they're just as real, if not more, because people don't talk about mental health. And that needs to be talked about as well. And people who struggle with mental health, there's a good bit of them that struggle with substance use as well. So just love, kindness, and compassion when you're talking to people in recovery, and strength-based language. That's really all I've got. And I thank you everyone for participating in your questions. I think that this was well needed for our community. and it was an honor to be a part of it.
Let's give Larnie some Zoom and actual applause to the best of our ability. Larnie, thank you so much. You are a personal hero of mine, so I appreciate you and the wisdom you shared with us today. I am a better person for knowing you. Tiffany, I would love to ask you to share a little bit more from your perspective in counseling about written language. I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, part of the Cures Act, we are going to be doing April 1st. Everyone's supposed to go to Open Notes, and Open Notes. So patients or clients will have access to their records. So using strength-based language is also important for that client who is reading that record. And then anything you would share with colleagues, for instance, if the client wants their records released to a doctor or to a school or whatever it might be, that language also reflects strengths-based language regarding that client.
And it's so interesting. You know, I come from a social work background in training, and I know there are many social workers on the call. I mean, what an important opportunity to acknowledge that if we engaged in every conversation as though the client, partner, or participant were in the room with us.
Yes.
I just think that's a good way to live life. And those are maybe some of my personal values being spoken out, but that's just a good way to interact, is not say anything that you wouldn't say with the person in the room.
That is where Open Notes is going, the transparency for the client and the therapist. So you're on the same page, you agree to the information that's part of your record.
That's great. And Larnie, as we start to close out for the day, thank you, Tiffany, by the way, appreciate that. Larnie, I know we already have a couple of requests in the chat box because you did such a great job to have you offer this training to other local staff, such as Clark County School District. Dr. Watley made that request. If you wouldn't mind to just drop your email address in the chat box for everyone, and then I'll connect you specifically with Dr. Watley after the call today.
Sure, no problem. Oops. No.
Guys, I do want to I hate making announcements and sharing moments like these, but it's important to acknowledge when our community has suffered a loss. And so I want to take a moment and do that. Many of you knew and worked with Leslie Kimball, and Leslie was very much, in keeping with our work today. Considered an ally for this community. She worked as the health service administrator at the Athens Clark County Jail. She graciously shared time with us in the last couple of years and helping us increase our understanding about medicated assisted treatment, and was an advocate for that. So I just want to acknowledge our loss of her and her family's loss. So just want to say, thank you, Ms. Kimball, for all you did. Is there anyone that would like to share anything about your work with her before we move toward closing out the call? Allie?
Okay, wanted to make sure I was off mute. I just wanted to say, working in the field of MAT for so many years, it's 20 now, and we've really never had an ally in the jail system before for our patients. So Leslie, she really did lead the way. And I hate that, she did put so much work into that MAT program at the jail, and right before COVID hit, which did kind of put a wrench in the plans. But she really did open some big doors. So our patients do have a lot of resources there now. But I just wanted to say, she really was the first ally that we had in the jail system as far as helping out our patients. So we were very grateful for that.
So last year when we lost Chief Dale Allen, who I know was a personal friend and hero to many of us, we took time and space to honor his work and championship of so many things that matter. And then out of respect for his work, ask the question, so what would he want us to do? And I think what he would want us to do and what we did is pretty quickly get to work and get back to the things he was championing. I would say the same for Ms. Kimball. So I think this warrants some follow-up just to see what progress will continue to be made in the good work that she helped implement. So I think that's our opportunity and our obligation. So thank you for sharing that moment. I think it's important to spotlight the good things and also acknowledge our losses together. Just a few minutes remaining before the hour. Any other announcements or updates for this group? So as we start to close out, we will go back. Some weird. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay. Our next regularly scheduled meeting will be Wednesday, April 14th at 10 a.m. So thanks to the additional folks who joined us today. If you're interested in being part of the ongoing conversation related to supporting people living in recovery, our group will meet again on Wednesday, April 14th at 10 a.m. At that point, we will do kind of a final update regarding naloxone distribution, and we have some exciting movement in that area. Many more partners have made naloxone available and have had their stakeholders or staff members trained. So we look forward to sharing that update and then kind of moving forward to look at other success measures, including addressing relationship building with property managers and other things as well. So thank you for the announcement. Creature Comforts today, right, at 4:30, you have the opportunity to join and support at Acceptance Recovery Center and make hygiene kits on site at 5 p.m. They do observe COVID aware practices. So, there is mask wearing. So you can plan to join and know that they are being thoughtful about your health. As we start to sign off, I also want to acknowledge Linda Davis joined us today, school board member. I always like to note when public servants who go the extra mile take even more time to be a part of conversations. Miss Linda is a mentor of mine and has been a leader in the school board for quite some time and is an advocate for children and young people. So just want to thank you, Miss Linda, for all you do. All right, many more of you I could think. That would take another hour for me to talk about all the people I appreciate on this call. So I will save that for another time and just close out by, again, Larnie, thank you so much for helping us be better versions of ourselves today and be more equipped allies. Thank you so much, guys.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Larnie.
Thank you so much, Larnie.